Well, hello there. Now, I don't know about where you are, but where I am in a castle just outside of Belfast in Northern Ireland, it's been a pretty horrible, cold, wet, miserable day. So I can think of nothing better than to sit with a steaming hot toddy and a little nibble of something tasty in the company of these three fabulous people for a bit of crack, conversation, and a sneak listen to their latest EP, In Search of Home. Ladies and gentlemen, can I introduce you to Michelle Wooderson, Rick Blakely, and Rue Stewart, who are the Leawood Saints.
You.
Hi, everybody.
Woo! Thank you very much, Your Majesty.
You're so welcome, subject. Now, chaps, your last EP, See Amid the Winter's Snow, was released in 2012. That was 8 years ago. 8 years ago! Why has it taken you so long for this release? Where have you all been?
It was all Ray's fault.
Yes.
Okay.
So tell us then, Lou, what was the delay all about?
Well, we were in Belfast. We were all based in Belfast. And usually on a Monday night, we'd go down to Rick's place, which he had a studio. He still does. It's an amazing place, reasonable rates. And we'd go there on a Monday night. We'd just jam and think about songs and get creative. We had a lovely time. But then I decided I had to move to London. So that was the end of that. So I moved 2014. And so anytime I was back in Belfast, we always tried to get scheduled in for a little stint in the studio. And so we have actually built up a little bit of repertoire over a few years, like just very piecemeal. The great thing is because we know each other and, you know, we all like playing together, it's really easy to come back in and start playing together again. But it was very few and far between the chances that we got to play together. So yeah, 8 years later, here we are with our second album offering. That's, yeah, eight crazy years.
Yeah, we always started off just doing it for a bit of fun and didn't expect like a big reception or anything, but it got fairly well received the first time. So we just decided to start putting it together. So we started this one in March, I think it was. Did we start March, April, somewhere around there? I know it was early summer anyway, because I remember the sunny evenings and just putting ideas. So we've been doing the songs for that whole time. And so ideas started to surface up. So we had like a little bank of ideas, like Rue said, and we just decided to trial and error with a few of them and see what worked. And slowly but surely, they started to gel together. These songs sort of started sticking out, and different ideas started to form, and it came together to be what it is.
And why another Christmas album as opposed to anything else?
Well, we actually do like Christmas songs. I know whenever you're going around the shopping centres or whatever in a normal year, it gets to you really quickly, doesn't it? The amount of jolly music that's playing whenever you just can't stand the person who's walking slowly in front of you. And there's no amount of jingle bells and little donkey that can calm that anger inside that just makes you want to hurry everyone else up so you can get your Christmas shopping done. But I actually quite like Christmas music apart from that. And I really like the fact that Christmas music, you know, you can have classical, you can have like traditional music, you can have like music from the 50s and the 60s, like the Phil Spector kind of stuff, which I still love. And you can have the more modern stuff and contemporary music. Like every era, every generation has its own expression of what it thinks Christmas music should be like. And they all coexist in this wonderful world together at Christmas. It's perfectly acceptable, I think, for all these different genres to be mushed together. I really love that variety. You know, we can kind of try our hand at a lot of different things and sort of get away with it as well.
Excellent. Well, I do love Christmas music, so this was a special treat for me, for sure. But I was wondering, with all the restrictions due to lockdown and the COVID, you know, how difficult was it to actually pull this album together, you know, and especially with you being in London, Rue, and Michelle out foraging in the forest all day. I mean, you're practically living in your allotment.
I'm not in the allotment currently, Kathy.
Yes. Oh, you're not? Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that right now. I see you're inside for a change.
I'm in the house, in the warm.
And Rick, I never know where you are because, I mean, you could be in your studio, you could be at home, you could be somewhere else. So How did it all work? How did you get it together?
I think I started to lose the plot at the start of lockdown, and I think I'd contacted Rue one day and was like, "Let's do some music. Let's just jam. I'm really missing doing stuff, and let's see if it'll work over Zoom." So me and Rue started messing around with some of that sort of technology, and do you know what? It was lovely. I'd look forward to doing that, and then I think that's probably where we started to think, do you know what? We could definitely work on this stuff together from a distance, so we started to talk about starting the album, the EP. Then at that point,
yeah, we just got like a shared folder, like we Dropbox thing, and so with the sort of experiment with things, I would sort of mash my hands down on the piano and then come
with
up
your
with
mittens on,
literally like that, and then I would send it to Rue and he would work out the actual musical sort of context for things and make it into a proper arrangement, then send it back to me in the studio, and I would sort of assemble all the little bits and pieces together. And so whenever lockdown wasn't so lockdown, Michelle and I were able to get together in the studio and record bits and pieces, and then Rue would remotely send over his bits and pieces, and then we would just sort of assemble them all together and see what works.
The joy of it is that, everyone's in the same position, whether they're people who, they live 2 miles away or they live 200 miles away. Everyone was sort of in this same difficulty of how are we going to record this music together? And we quickly found that we couldn't do anything pinpoint accurate live. It just wasn't going to work, and it's the same for whoever they are, wherever they are in the world. You're just not going to, defeat that slight delay and the little technical gremlins every so often. But the way that we were able to work it, it didn't matter that I was, over in London fixing something. I can send it over, and in 5 seconds they've got it in their folder. So it's quite incredible just how the technology works, and we just made it work for us in a way which, it's not as nice as playing together, and you don't get to feed off each other and vibe off each other and watch the other person, how they're going to play, and you kind of have that kind of sixth sense sometimes as musicians. We didn't really have that opportunity, and that's trickier. But I think all the rest of it kind of just worked, and because we know each other, because we've played so much together, it was pretty easy to kind of work out what the blanks were going to be and what we needed to fill in, and not to sort of overplay. We kind of knew where each other sits in each track, so it came together much more easily than I was expecting, actually.
Well, I've been very fortunate enough to be able to have listened to the album a few times, and I've noticed that there are one or two instruments in there that I know that none of you play, despite, of course, being exceptionally talented musicians. So spill the beans. Who plays what instrument on the album?
So Rue is our main pianist and arranged all the other stuff. So there's some electronic stuff and things that he does. Michelle plays piano as well, but she's primarily a wind instrument player. She plays flutes, whistles, and
just get on the wind.
Full of wind. And my main instrument is guitar, and I noodle with all the other bits and pieces and production stuff. So my electric guitar is throughout it, but it sort of comes across as like a pad sort of sound. So you might not think, oh, that's an electric guitar if you heard it, but that's what creates some of the sort of textured stuff in the background. So that's what I do. And we all sing.
So, and then I've got a friend who's a classical violinist and viola player, and he plays a lot of trad stuff as well. So we brought him in, and his name's John Fitzpatrick. He also has an alias, which is Quentin Vestibule. So he goes by both those names. And so we were very honoured and very lucky to have him feature with those instruments on the album.
In a couple of minutes, we're going to have a wee listen to some of the tracks on the album. But Rui, the first track on the album, In Search of Home, the actual title track, what's the story behind that?
It all started off, I was coming out of the train station every day on my way home from work, and there was a guy who was at the side of the station, always, there looking for money or looking for food. And so I sort of just got to know him and would nod and wave and smile and start talking. And eventually, after many months, thought, here's a chance to befriend someone who looks a bit lost and, isn't having the best time of it in their life, maybe I can hear a little bit of their story. Maybe I can share a bit of my story. So that's what happened. So we went to the local chicken shop and had a chat, and basically everything that the guy was sharing with me, you can hear it in the song. But, from a Christmas point of view, and to try and get some of the hope of Christmas in there as well, and to just offer a real sort of personal look at what life is like for some folks at Christmas. It was a great opportunity to be able to record that and put it onto the album.
Let's have a wee listen, shall we?
That grief of mine, a worn headline, no Christmas miracle or prayer. Spare a thought, maybe a pound, and lift my eyes from the ground, and maybe then some good will come along.
I find that song exceptionally moving, and especially this year with so much separation, loneliness and hardship. And I think this will touch many people, really. Just beautiful. Thank you. Now, Michelle, track number 2, Holly and Ivy, is an amalgamation of a couple of Christmas songs that I think you termed a mashup. Tell us how this came about.
We'd each of us tasked ourselves with choosing two or three carols or Christmas songs that we wanted to kind of work on, and I was looking for stuff with natural imagery just because I like that. So I chose the Holly and the Ivy. It's not because I love the carol particularly, but I wanted to do a completely different version of it. But when we did that one, there were lyrics in it that we didn't like the playing of the merry organ and sweet singing in the choir, and some of it was quite difficult to actually sing without loads of S's. But I'd also recorded the Sans Day Carol as well, and I don't know who came up with the idea of trying to kind of mash them up together, so we had a little bit of.
I think that was me. Like I was messing around, and then I started singing that, thinking it was part of that song, and you're like, "That's actually a different song," and I didn't know. So but it worked. It sort of worked, that little mashup. Because one is very sort of traditional and a bit lilty, and then that Holly just gave a really nice sort of choral break from the verse thing. So it sort of worked.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing more complicated than that, Queen Kate.
Well, it works. It absolutely works. So well done on that one. Are we going to have a listen to that too?
Holly, 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 holly. And the first tree in the greenwood, it was the holly.
Fabulous. Next up, O Little Town of Bethlehem. Now that is a very well-known Christmas carol dating back, almost, 150 years. Did you know that? Rick, why did you choose O Little Town of Bethlehem?
I sort of went to the piano and tried to work it out, and even me trying to play it normally wasn't going to happen. So that's where the chordal structure sort of changed, and there were some happy accidents in there. So I would just go to the keyboard and hit transpose to a random key, and then place my hand somewhere, and then try and work something out, and then send it to Rue, and he played it properly, knowing what the notes actually do. And so yeah, there's a very different kind of chordal structure to this one. And then when John and Quentin came in to do the strings part, I sort of hummed the little riff thing in the middle, and he just layered and layered and layered those in the in-betweens, and it makes a lovely little transition. So I think it came together really nicely.
It certainly did. A very old carol with a very modern feel, so well done. We are now going to hear Leawood Saints' updated version of O Little Town of Bethlehem.
How silently the wondrous gift is given. So God imparts to human hearts the blessings of his heaven. No ear may hear his coming, but in this world of sin, where meek souls will receive him.
So we're now on
still,
to track
the
4,
deep
Winter Snow. Michelle, tell us a wee bit about this one.
I wrote this years and years ago, actually, to a poem by Amy Carmichael, and we kind of jammed it out on one of our Monday night things, and probably in maybe one take, I don't know, but it was something we all kept coming back to because we really loved it, and we really loved the feel of it or something. And then we were like, it's just not going to fit on anything. It's definitely not Christmassy. So Rick had sort of said, why don't you write some new lyrics for it and make it a bit more kind of wintry or something? So I kind of come up with the idea of sort of reflecting on the year and the state of things, and thinking about how I wish we could have a new start, and how snow makes you feel like you've got a new start, because it just makes everything look completely new. It's like changes your perspective on things somehow, makes everything feel very pure and clean, and like you've got a second chance in some way. And I was thinking about if the world could have a reset in some way, because it's just bonkers. And so that's sort of where the idea initially came from, about this, and the haven that nature has been for us all, and has been for a long time, but particularly this year, that in lockdown people seem to have discovered more than ever the sanctuary that nature offers us all. So there's that in there as well, and there's also, I suppose, for me, I sometimes feel very overwhelmed with all the climate stuff, I suppose. I'm not going to go on about it, but I think there's this idea, I think, sometimes in society that humans are kind of superior, we're better, we're to dominate and to control nature, and that we're not, that we're better of it, better than it or something in some way. And I suppose I feel quite strongly that everything's sacred, everything's hallowed, that everything, all life is interconnected. We're just part of that. We're just part of the whole natural world. We're not above it. We're not better than it. And so that whole idea of everything, all is hallowed, that was really important for me to put in there. And also, I think, in the light of all the hatred and selfishness and greed that you see around you, especially this year, I'm just so conscious that to live in the opposite way to that is kind of a bit of an act of rebellion, really, against such a crooked system. And so how important it is to keep your heart kind and soft and warm. And so that's where that line came from, about kindness lighting a fire to keep your heart warm. So that's really the idea of the song in a nutshell.
We're now going to hear a little of Winter Snow by Michelle Witterson and Leawood Saints.
Fill me, flood me, overflow me. Fill me, flood me, overflow me. Softly falls winter snow, and all is hallowed.
Now, the next track, River, was originally written by one of my favourite singer-songwriters of all time, a lady called Joni Mitchell. And it's a bit of an oldie as well, actually. I think it was released in 1971, so that makes it about 50 years old, to be precise, when you guys were only twinkles in your daddy's eye and I was nothing but a little nipper. So what on earth made you choose this golden oldie?
Never actually heard the song until last Christmas, and I was performing with a choir here in London. And the song, it's very familiar to people. It's just piano. It's really stripped back. Her voice is incredible on it. So to do a cover of it, I know there are other artists out there who've done covers. and they've kind of done the same kind of format. It has the same kind of introduction, and it might be on guitar or it might be on piano, but it kind of feels the same. I wanted to recreate it in a different way that kind of made it my own, or made it our own as Leawood Saints. So I was, just searching through kind of ideas. How could we change it up? What could we do with it? And then I remembered some of like the really great musicians who were around in the last couple of years, quite sort of edgy and different, very stripped back and raw. People like James Blake and that kind of feel. And I thought, yeah, I'd really like to do that. So that's where I sort of went with it. Now, these two, they're a different era from me. They were saying, oh, it's like Ultravox or Kraftwerk or something, but actually, maybe it is a bit like that. I think they're probably derivative, to be honest. There's definitely a chain of musicality through the years, but that wasn't originally what I was going for, but I guess it's there. So there's this kind of like drum machine in there, really raw, and then there's like an electronic synth bass that's in there as well. So, and then there's sort of like really electronic-y sort of pad. So it's a really different way of doing music that I don't often do, but I just wanted to push myself into a different mode to see what it came out like. I took the tempo down a little bit more. It's already a slow song, and I've really stretched it out. I changed the time signature, so it's got like a different kind of feel to each bar of it. And also, the introduction originally was Jingle Bells. Doom, doom, doom,
Right.
doom, doom, doom. Everyone knows that one. And it's that kind of wonderful juxtaposition of Jingle Bells with this depressive kind of song where she just wants to end everything. Her life is falling apart. Jingle bells, and it's it's brilliant how she came up with that idea. But I wanted to do something slightly different. So instead of Jingle Bells, I've got the Gloria, Glory in Excelsis. So I've got that kind of angelic theme going on in the background then. So every time the singer sort of pauses for thought, there's this kind of angelic, otherworldly message of some kind of hope in there as well.
Fabulous. And I have to say, Rui, I think you give Joni a good run for her money on this
I
one.
would teach my feet to fly. I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I made my baby cry.
Last but by no means least, we have Yourself a Very Merry Christmas, another great Christmas classic. Rick, talk us through this one.
I think this was the first thing we did, like back in the day, but like the very first one that we laid down. And Rue was over for a visit, so we got together in the studio pre-COVID. I had said that I just loved this song, this one in particular. When you strip it back to the real, like bare essentials, then there's something really beautiful about it. It's just a super chilled song. It's kind of like have a little whiskey and maybe a cigar if you like it, and just really relax. But it feels like it's at somewhere, and the message feels quite poignant for Christmas this time, because this year has been so bleak for everybody, but there's hope, and we're going the right direction, hopefully. And by this time next year, the original message will be true again. And but regardless of all that, we're still able to get together, hopefully, and focus on the things that do matter. Really simple, just piano and vocal. So dead easy, nothing complicated, but it didn't really feel like it needed anything else in there, like musically. It was just itself.
Here it is.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Make the Yuletide gay. From now on, our troubles will be miles away.
6 luscious tracks of pure, unadulterated Christmas magic in one little EP. The fire is lit, the fleecy pyjamas are on, the aroma of mulled wine brewing on the stove, and you're snuggled back down into your cosy sofa, being lulled into a restful, warm reverie by the Leawood Saints and In Search of Home. This feels like Christmas to me. So tell us, guys, how do we get our EPs?
It's available on all your usual streaming
Oh.
services, iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, all those different things.
You can't buy a physical copy of it, but you can actually buy the download. It really makes a huge difference if you actually own your music, and you're investing in the lives of musicians who can then do it again. We actually were able to fund the making of this album through the proceeds of the last album that we made, and we wouldn't have been able to do that if it had just been all streamed.
You heard the man. Make sure you buy a copy of the EP to keep our musicians doing what they do best. And on that note, we just want to say a huge thank you to the Leawood Saints, who are Michelle Wooderson, Rick Blakely and Rue Stewart, for making such great music and keeping us all very sane and happy in this otherwise crazy year. And I just want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and every success with the album. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Your
you.
Highness.
Silent stars go by, yet in the dark street shineth the everlasting light. The hopes and fears of all the years are